everyone, welcome to the BMES Professional Development webinar, How to Make the Most of Your Time at the 2019 BMES Annual Meeting. I am Jen Noveski. I am the Director of Membership Development and Corporate Partnerships at BMES. I'm going to be your moderator today. Before we get started, we wanted to take a poll of our participants and ask you all, which of the following best describes you? Are you an undergraduate student, a graduate student, postdoc fellow? Are you faculty, an industry professional, a clinician, government professional, or other? So I'm going to take a few seconds here and let you all answer this question. That way we can get a feel for who's on the line with us today. It looks like as the results are coming in, we've got quite a number of students who are with us, graduate students at 46.3%, undergraduate students at 18.5%, a few postdoc fellows, some faculty, as well as industry professionals, government professionals, and then others. Thanks for taking the time to answer that question. I'm going to close that poll. I have some housekeeping announcements. Just to let you know, the archived recording is going to be available shortly after the webinar on the BMES website. Throughout the webinar today, you may submit questions through the online chat function. You should see it on the bottom left-hand side of your screen there. Your questions are going to be addressed after all of our speakers go. We'll take some questions, and some of you also introduced some questions at before the webinar began, so we'll be covering those as well. And I just want to ask that you take a few minutes to complete the brief survey that follows the webinar to provide us with your feedback for if you thought this was helpful. And then before we start off, we have one more poll question for you. How many BMES annual meetings have you attended? Is this your first one? Have you been to a couple of them, or are you a veteran and you've been to these before and you're really on to kind of get a first look at what's going to happen next month in Philadelphia? Take a few seconds there. It looks like about 84 or 5% of you are first-timers, so welcome. About 11% of you have been to 2 or 4, or 2 to 4, and then 5 or more, there's a handful at 5% of you who keep coming back, and we thank you for that. So I'm going to introduce our slate of speakers first. The first person to come up will be Elisa Morse-Klein. She's an associate professor at the University of Maryland. She's also the BMES 2019 Annual Meeting co-chair. She's one of 3. We have Penny Gilbert, who's an associate professor at the University of Toronto. And then Stephanie Mansfield, who's a principal at Brooks Cushman. The 3 of them are going to go. They're going to have presentations for you. Again, feel free to use the participant feedback questions. You can submit your questions as they are in their presentations, and then we'll take the last 30 minutes or so to answer your questions. So, Elisa, I will kick it off to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jen. It's really my pleasure on behalf of myself and the other 2 BMES 2019 co-chairs, who are Jason Burdick from the University of Pennsylvania and Ruth Ochia from Temple University, to welcome you a little bit in advance to the 2019 meeting. I just moved to Maryland from Philadelphia a few months ago. I lived in Philadelphia for 12 years, and the conference is at the Convention Center, which is right in the heart of Philadelphia. You're so close to a lot of amazing things, historic, cultural, food, otherwise, to explore in Philadelphia. And we put together what we think is a great meeting in a great location, and we're really excited for you to join us. So today in my presentation, I'm going to go through some of the highlights of the meeting and how you can plan for some of these events that are going to be going on in Philadelphia. So my suggestion is that you start at the BMES homepage looking at the conference, and if you go to the program and agenda, you'll see there's a link for the schedule at a glance that's updated as of September 9th, it looks like. And at the schedule at a glance, you can see sort of an overview of everything that's going to be going on at the conference. So if we look at that schedule at a glance, this is the example for Thursday, October 17th, which is the first day of lots of programming at the meeting. You can see the schedule at a glance lists everything that is going on along with the time where it is happening here on the left and the location on the right-hand side. And the BMES staff have been wonderful about color coding everything for you. I'm going to go over some but not all of these things. Specifically, I'm going to cover the plenary talks, which are in this light pink color, the social and special events, which are in this darker yellow, and the special sessions, which are in gray, as well as just an overview of how to decide which platform sessions you want to go to and which of the poster sessions, which are down here, that you also would like to attend. So let's start with the plenary lectures. So I highly recommend, especially if this is your first BMES, that you attend the plenary lectures. And there are some on each day of the conference. So some of the highlights are on Thursday morning. Dr. Chris Chen, who's currently at Boston University, is going to be receiving the Pritzker Award, which is the highest honor in BMES. Chris Chen wrote an amazing paper a long time ago connecting cell shape with cell fate, and since that time he's created a multitude of in vitro devices to study mechanobiology, and as of late he's gotten highly involved in stem cell research. So this is sure to be a fascinating talk with a great integration of biology and biomechanics. After that, on Thursday evening, we have Steve Abramowitz from Pittsburgh who's going to give the diversity lecture. Dr. Abramowitz has not just one but two NSF-funded programs to increase the representation of minorities in graduate school and research, and I'm sure that will be a wonderful opportunity to learn more about how to enhance diversity in biomedical engineering. On Friday morning, the NIBIB lecture is by Rebecca Richards-Cordum, who's at Rice University, and she is a pioneer in engineering for global health, specifically focused on developing low-cost imaging systems to diagnose diseases around the world. And that evening, we continue with the technology piece with the Coulter Award for Healthcare Innovation by Dr. Bruce Levine of the University of Pennsylvania. Bruce Levine developed synthetic immune cells, better known as CAR T cells, to attack cancer. And that's an amazing new technology that is making clinical cancer treatment changes so fast, it's unreal. Then we have two other award lectures on Saturday morning. These are hot off the press. So the Rita Schaefer-Young Investigator Lecture will be given by James Dahlman from Georgia Tech. He is working in DNA barcoded nanoparticles that can also be used to deliver DNA to cells. And the second one is the Mid-Career Lecture. This was new last year. This year it's won by Celeste Nelson, who interestingly enough came out of Chris Chen's lab. She works in how biochemical and biomechanical signals integrate in time and space and how that plays a role in organ development. So I think all of these plenary lecturers are leaders or upcoming leaders in the field and will give some amazing talks. I highly recommend that you take the time to go to those. Second, BMES is the place to network with other biomedical engineers, and a lot of the social events and networking opportunities are highlighted in this dark yellow color. So we start on Wednesday night, really before the scientific programming begins, with a welcome reception. Later that evening, there's an LGBT and Friends dessert social. And I'll say for all of these events that are focused on minorities in biomedical engineering, you do not have to be one of that particular group to attend. They are for everybody who supports diversity and inclusion in biomedical engineering. So that's the LGBTQ dessert social. On Thursday at lunch, there's a celebration of minorities in BME luncheon with a speaker. And then on Friday at noon, there's the Women in BME luncheon, again with a speaker. So these are great opportunities to show your support for minorities in biomedical engineering and learn more about the issues that are facing minorities in all of our departments and companies. On both Thursday and Friday evening, there is a host of university-hosted receptions. Pretty much every university has one or has one with another university that they share. These are great opportunities if you are interested in going to graduate school to check out the faculty and the students at a university. If you're looking for a faculty position, it's also a great place to meet people and to network. And even if you're not doing any of those things, it's a wonderful opportunity to meet other people and to get some delicious food and some beverages and just have a really nice time. One of, I think, the highlights of BMES is the Dessert Bash, which is held on Friday evening. This year we are holding it at the Franklin Institute, and if you've never been to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, you do not want to miss it. The Franklin Institute is a premier science museum in the country, and I can say I've been there many, many, many times and still haven't seen everything there is to offer. They have exhibits in the world of biomedical engineering on the heart and the brain, and a really fun sports zone where you can race professional racers or the Philly Fanatic if you want to. And then they have actually a full train locomotive. They have airplanes. They have a whole electricity exhibit, a planetarium, an exhibit on machines. You name it, it's in the Franklin Institute. So it'll be a really great opportunity to see the exhibits there, to have some dessert, to mingle with people, and we're really excited that we're going to have that event at the Franklin Institute. All right, so that's the plenary speakers and the social events. Third, I really recommend that you check out the special sessions. So special sessions are submitted by leaders in the field on a current topic that they really want to highlight at the BMES meeting. They invite speakers who are also leaders in these fields. We have a few that are a particular focus this year or are new for this year. We have several of them that are on global health and healthcare disparities. I believe there are 3 of those. So if that's your interest, I hope that you'll attend those. This year for the first time we have a whole special session focused on bioengineering and women's health. There's also one on forensic biomechanics, which is sure to be interesting. And then we are doing a new event on Saturday afternoon of the conference, and it's called it's a Blaze Design Workshop. So basically we're doing a design slam. We're going to get some problems from clinicians and have teams of students work on using design thinking to develop solutions to those problems, and then present them at the end to a group of industry representatives who will serve as the Shark Tank. So it's sure to be a really fun session. It's led by a couple faculty who do this all the time from the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And we will have some prizes to hand out to the winners. So if you love biomedical engineering design, please sign up for that workshop. There's just a very small fee to cover some of the costs of materials for the workshop. Finally, the main purpose of the BMES meeting is really to check out the scientific program and all the talks that are submitted as abstracts and are accepted for the program. So if you go back to the BMES website, below the Schedule at a Glance, you can find a searchable scientific program. And here's where you'll find all the talks and all the posters. So there's multiple ways that I suggest that you look at this. The The first one is really to go to the different tracks. So if you go to that website, you can select one of the tracks and look at all the talks that are in that track. And you can see on the right-hand side here that we have a lot of different tracks at BMES. And a lot of these are going on at the same time, and there's a lot of overlap amongst the tracks. So you have to look carefully at multiple tracks and see which talks are most interesting to you. So that's one way to look at the program. The second way is to look by author last name. So you can really go in and say, oh, I have read all these papers by Dennis Disher at Penn. I want to go hear what he's doing in the latest research from his lab. And so you can find him by author last name, or you can look up actually Jason Burdick, who's one of our organizers. He's got 20 students presenting at the meeting. So there's a lot of things that are going on. And if you're interested in a particular lab or a particular PI, you can go in and find what's going on in their group. And finally, if you're someone who's looking for a job or looking for grad school or your next opportunity, you can also look by the affiliation of the author. So you can type in all the people who are presenting from Temple University and find out and go to those talks if you're interested in that particular department. So there's a lot of different talks going on all at the same time, and there's also a lot that's presented in the poster sessions. So anyone who's registered can go to any of the talks, and I also encourage you to go and check out the poster sessions throughout the entire day, but especially at the time when the speakers are at their posters. And I've just highlighted here that this is what the exhibit hall looks like. These squares in yellow are universities and companies that are exhibiting at BMES. And also here are where the refreshment breaks will happen. So when you go to get your refreshments, take a few moments to go in and find some posters that are interesting. And sometimes the best talks that you find at BMES come at the poster session. So there's lots of opportunities to explore all of the science and networking that's going on. These are some of the highlights of what's going on. I do want to highlight that we just found out that at this BMES booth right in the middle, if you are getting stressed out at the conference with the multitude of talks you're attending, that BMES is going to have puppies and kittens from a local shelter. So you can go and relax a little bit at the BMES booth right here in the center of the exhibition hall. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Penny Gilbert, and she will continue the webinar.
Greetings from Canada. I'm very happy to join you today and share some tips on how to get the most out of your 2019 BMES conference experience from the academia perspective. Now, as Dr. Morse Klein pointed out, the BMES conference offers a huge number of networking and seminar and educational opportunities, which is great, but it can also be rather overwhelming, even to a seasoned conference goer like myself. So before you arrive in Philadelphia, spend some time thinking about what you hope to get out of the BMES conference, as this will really help you to plan your days. So maybe you want to learn what's going on in your specific research field, or to pinpoint emerging fields of research in the BME space, or maybe you aspire to pursue graduate studies, to secure a postdoc, or begin the path to establishing a faculty position at an academic institution. So armed with these goals, you'll have a much easier time looking through the schedule with a specific focus in mind. So for example, if you aspire to pursue graduate studies, select talks within platform sessions and posters to visit that might be outside your research area to get a sense of what topics ring your bell. And be sure to visit the university booths in the exhibit hall and attend special sessions that are focused on providing info to aspiring graduate students. Attend sessions that are led by graduate students as a means to scout out future leadership opportunities, and use those networking events to learn more about graduate programs. More on networking in a moment. Now, for me, reviewing the entire schedule ahead of the actual conference is far too daunting of a task, as much as I would love to do it. So a strategy I've developed over the years that I really like to use is in the evening time, when I'm winding down the day in my hotel room with a cup of tea, I review the schedule and plan for the next day.
Now, truthfully, all of the BMES conference programming is top-notch, and the best approach is to identify sessions that speak to you and to dose in 2 to 3 experiences a day that are maybe outside of your focus to practice getting out of your comfort zone and as a means of increasing the breadth of knowledge in the BME space. But having said that, I'll highlight here a few BMES sessions with an eye towards hidden opportunities that they provide. As Dr. Morse-Klein noted, please plan to attend all of the plenary sessions. These seminars are delivered by BME innovators who are also skilled in the art of science communication. You can think of this essentially as a free opportunity to experience science goosebumps. If you aspire to pursue graduate studies, consider attending the Path to Graduate School session on October 18th to understand the application and admissions process, to gain insight into what graduate programs are looking for, and to network with those other attendees who aspire to pursue graduate studies. Learn tips to maximize the impact of your graduate studies by attending the Make the Most of Your Academic Experience on October 17th. And in the same vein, attending the BMES Q&A panel with student chapter leaders on October 18th is another way to network, but also to scope out BMES leadership opportunities that you can pursue when you're a graduate student. I'd also like to highlight the BMES Special Interest Group sessions on October 19th. The Cellular and Molecular Bioengineering and the Medical Devices Special Interest Groups will be represented at BMES 2019. Involving yourself in one of these BMES SIGs is really a great way to quickly build your scientific community, establish meaningful collaborations, and be part of the evolution of your research field. There is a very strong chance that you will run into the conundrum of 2 sessions that you really want to attend that are running concurrently. And in this case, consider attending the first half of one session and the second half of the other. Also, conferences with a large number of attendees and concurrent sessions are really a great place to push your personal development. For me, asking questions after a talk always induced heart palpitations, but with practice, I found it became easier and easier. So challenge yourself at BMES to approach the mic and ask a question. For many of you, attending BMES 2019 means an opportunity to share your research through a poster presentation or oral presentation. So my next few slides will focus on tips on delivering a really great presentation. In general, more pictures and less text is desirable on a poster. The exhibit hall is lined with literally hundreds of posters each day for attendees to walk through, scan, and choose from. The best way to draw an audience to your poster is to have lots of pictures and a catchy title. With so many posters to see, conference goers really appreciate the poster presenter who pitches their work as concisely as possible. To do this, prepare a 3-minute story about your work where you focus on one key finding you are very excited about and provide enough background to set up your finding. 3 minutes is very short, so be sure to build in time ahead of your poster presentation to practice your pitch. Then, when someone shows up at your poster and you have that sort of awkward initial moment, you can ask them if they'd like the 3-minute Reader's Digest version of your poster. This lets them know that you intend to make it brief and increases the chance of connection. So if the poster visitor has expertise in your field, they'll then follow up with loads of questions and the two of you can just geek out. But the best pieces of advice that I can offer about poster presentations are be approachable and don't be afraid to share your excitement. A big smile gets them to your poster, and your excitement for your work is what keeps them there. And together, that is the best way to leave a lasting impression. Okay, so turning to oral presentations. Again, doing your best to keep a smile on your face and share the excitement you have for your work is key. But you will have a little bit more time to tell your science story, and really, the best oral presentations are approached through the art of storytelling. Start by throwing in the theme. What human health challenge or engineering goal is your work focused on? Provide them the plot. Keep them on the edge of their seats by making clear the scientific gap that you're working to fill. As you present your work, call on the characters. Everyone knows that science is a team effort. Including pictures of your teammates as you tell your science story and acknowledge their contributions provides a human connection that everyone can relate to. Every good story and every good science project has a surprise finding. That moment when you were sure you had the answer and then a surprise popped up and led you down another path. Again, we all know this happens, and audiences love it when you share those moments of your science journey. You then end by revealing the resolution. What did you discover, and how does it relate back to the theme and the plot that you introduced at the beginning of your talk? Okay, so next is a series of rapid tips for your oral presentation. Do not try to squeeze more than a single science story per 20 minutes of speaking time. Believe me, this always ends in disaster. Don't use jargon or acronyms in your slides or presentation. And also, be sure to use simple words to explain your work. Imagine that you're sharing your research with someone you just met on the train. How would you ensure they get it? Take the time to prepare slide titles that capture the take-home message of the data contained within. Generic titles generally result in a confused audience. Take advantage of transition slides. Transition slides are a really great way to prompt yourself to set up the next slide in a really seamless fashion. And use arrows and dotted lines to point out things you want the audience to appreciate in your data slides. And don't assume they see what you see. Chances are they don't. I rarely practice for a 1-hour seminar, but I absolutely always practice for talks that are 30 minutes or less. Be sure to set aside time to practice your talk. This will also ensure that you feel confident and exert your excitement for your work and protect against going over your allotted seminar time, which is also a big no-no. A lot of your networking will happen in the exhibit hall and at social events that Dr. Morse-Klein mentioned earlier on. The exhibit hall is where you'll find all of the posters, scientific vendors, and other BMES 2019 sponsors, booths representing many of the grad programs you might be considering, and a number of special exhibits all happening concurrently. And then there are the social events. So, how do we network effectively? I think I could probably spend hours talking about networking, but our time is limited, so here's a brief summary map. Consider every interaction and every situation as an opportunity to expand your network. The first step is to be approachable. This means a constant smile on your face, an active effort to make eye contact with people as you walk through the conference center, and clothes that make you feel confident. In this regard, it's most common to see BMES attendees in business casual attire. Next is starting a conversation, which takes practice. But start by asking if they attended the plenary session today and what they thought of it. If they didn't attend, ask them what their favorite talk or poster so far is and why. And find out if they're an undergrad, graduate student, postdoc, PI, or work with industry, and then find out what academic institute or company they're with. Upon departing, depending upon what they say, use it as a segue to learn more about their research or their grad program or what it's like to work in their field. And if there's an obvious scientific connection, continue chatting. If the conversation wanes, say, well, it was really nice to meet you. I'm off to check out some posters or see a seminar or grab something to eat. I really can't stress how many times that someone I've met in this way reemerges in my science life years later or ends up being a fantastic contact for something I want to do in the future. So I've adopted the following strategy to reinforce my network, in part because I'm really horrible with names. I ask each person I have a longer than 5-minute chat with if I can take a photo of their name badge. And after the conference, I send a very brief note to that person upon finding their email on the internet to say it was really great to meet them, remind them about the nature of the conversation we had, and say I hope we bump into one another at a future event. These email streams end up being gold because if at some point in the future you want to reconnect, say to ask a PI if they're considering grad applicants, or ask a graduate student for a protocol, you have an email thread that quickly reminds the recipient of the personal connection you had together. So that's all from me, and I'm happy now to turn it over to our next speaker, Dr. Stephanie Mansfield.
Thank you, Penny. I am happy to be here with you today. In addition to my role as a principal and patent agent with Brooks Cushman in Southfield, Michigan, I'm also a member of the Industry and Clinical Affairs Committee for BMES, and so I have a few slides to go over with you, some industry content that is available at the annual meeting this year. So referring back to the program and agenda and schedule at a glance that Elisa had mentioned at the outset, the industry sessions are identified as special sessions, and so they're in that light blue color. And there's two that I want to highlight for you. The first is offered on Thursday, and it is the Clinical Innovator Spotlight. This is a session that the industry committee has held for several years now, and it's usually quite popular. We have a panel of clinicians who are also innovators who have found problems in the clinic and then gone about addressing those problems with biomedical engineering solutions, sometimes within their own environment, sometimes by collaboration with industry or through startup companies. The other exciting development for this session this year is we have representatives from the AMA who will be explaining details about their Physician Innovation Network, which is a database of physicians and innovators who, it's a place for them to collaborate and connect about unmet clinical needs and how to solve those needs with biomedical engineering solutions. The other thing that will be discussed are having a clinical needs repository. This is something that the AMA is developing within this PIN for physicians to pose clinical problems and then have that information available to industry to spark future collaborations. So the next session that I'd like to highlight is on Friday, and this is a session for that would be suitable for faculty advisors and students alike about how biomedical engineering faculty can better prepare students for life in industry, as opposed to, of course, the normal track through academia. So some topics that will be addressed in this session would be particular courses or targeted coursework that could better prepare students for industry roles, and then specific mentoring that faculty could provide for students that are interested in industry versus academia. And then as well, for obtaining that first or even later in industry position, what are some skill sets that entry-level biomedical engineers need in order to be successful in those positions? So some other industry-related sessions that may be of interest are actually found in the student and early career offerings in the schedule at a glance. Those are in yellow, and so I just want to go through a couple of those here. The first is the BMES Careers in Industry and Government. It's also it's offered as a two-part session, 1 and 2, at the same time, but both on Thursday and Friday. And that will be a panel session where there will be various representatives from industry and government who will share about their educational background and their career paths, some insights into what their companies and organizations look for in hiring, and some suggestions in terms of, again, coursework and skill sets for current students and recent graduates. The second one is BME Entrepreneurship, and that's offered on Friday. And here there will be, here the discussion will be about translating technology from the university setting to commercial use. So panelists are going to have some stories to tell about their experiences within the university of moving towards a commercial product, how they use university resources and funding to do that, how intellectual property and licensing play a role, and then startup options out of the university. So just a note here, going back to what Penny had mentioned about, there is so much great content in the annual meeting. Inevitably, there are going to be sessions that overlap with one another. And so you may have noticed that the first two sessions that I highlighted, as well as this group, are running concurrently. And so one additional tip that I would give you with respect to when you find yourself in that situation is, at least in the situation that, or the sessions that I have highlighted here, the format is typically such that there is a panel of presenters that are going to give you the background information about their particular path or story or technical problem in the first portion of the session. And then in the second portion of the session is typically more of a Q&A. And so with that information, you can really look at your sessions that are running concurrently and decide which part you maybe want to hear the speaker background on, and which part maybe you would be fine just hearing the question and answer portion of. So some other opportunities for industry networking and involvement. Because you have the session information available ahead of time, a lot of times you know who the speakers and the panelists are going to be ahead of time. So if you're really interested in industry path or finding out more about these individuals or their companies, certainly take some time to find out about them ahead of the conference, do a little research, and absolutely try to connect with them during the conference, either after, as Penny mentioned, questions at the mic, or following them or following up with a question after the conference, and or an email after the conference telling them what you liked about their talk, and connecting that way, perhaps if you're not able to meet in person. The other thing is, I would go back to, this is a slide that similar to what Elisa had presented at the beginning. The exhibitors that are available at the conference are another place where you can connect with company representatives. In the list of exhibitors, you will find, among the multitude of universities, of course, who have booths, there are many companies who do as well. And so, again, you can research those companies. Sometimes there will be contact information provided about who will be at the booth, and you can connect with those individuals, again, do some research before, certainly during, and again after with the follow-up. I just have, of course, the notes down here at the bottom about business cards and resumes. Certainly bring business cards with you, hand them out, collect them from everyone you meet if possible, and then you may even choose to bring a resume. It may or may not be the decision maker at for example, a booth or a talk. But they can, if they are not able to accept your resume, they may be able to direct you towards how that could be submitted to their particular company. Just a couple follow-ups as well in terms of networking in general. I would say that that LinkedIn is a great, an easy way to connect with people before the conference, after, and provide you with the social media aspects. And then, in addition to the sessions themselves, make sure that you're using your breaks to your advantage. There's so many different and diverse people who are attending the conference. There's so many opportunities to connect, whether it be at a session or just on a break in a line to get coffee. So make sure you are really being outgoing and using that opportunity to build your network in whatever situation you find yourself in. I think all of us would tell you that life almost always tends to be about who you know, and so the more connections that you can make for many different areas, the better. And this conference is such a great opportunity to do that. So one last note in terms of involvement, as I mentioned, I'm a member of the BMES Industry and Clinical Affairs Committee, and our mission is to foster relationships between BMES and industry, to try to engage industry professionals to become more involved and members of BMES, and then certainly to create session content for the annual meeting that is interesting to industry professionals and to those who are interested in pursuing a career in industry. So if this sounds like something that you might like to be a part of, then I would encourage you to go to the BMES website. You can find the committees section, and this, among other committees that are available on BMES, there is a call for volunteers which will open November 1st. And you can read more about the committees and find out ways that you can get involved. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Jen.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate all of you speaking. And we're going to take some questions now. We had some that were sent in to us before the webinar began, and we're going to start with some of those. The first is, how can somebody from a non-engineering background make the most out of this meeting? And so I think, Dr. Gilbert, if you wouldn't mind, if you've got any tips to start for how somebody from a non-engineering background can make the most out of the meeting.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to this, especially as someone who is from a non-engineering background. I've attended BMES as a graduate trainee and as a postdoc and now as a faculty member. And at each stage of my career, I've found it to be a really meaningful experience. So as a graduate student, I was primarily focused on the educational opportunities and the workshops that allowed my personal development. Those really cross all discipline barriers. And then really trying to understand how where the engineering field is and the tools and technologies that can be transferred to other disciplines was something that I found very useful to me and ultimately inspired my decision to initiate a research lab that's at the intersection of biology and engineering. So I think those are sort of the main points that I would say on that is, the talks are fantastic. You'll gain a lot from them, and the various workshops that are offered really aren't engineering specific for the most part.
Great, thank you. We got a number of questions asking about specific disciplines, and I think Dr. Morse-Klein covered how to get to the program so you can see the schedule at a glance, as well as search by scientific topic area. But we also have the BMES app. And once you get on site, there'll be directions for how to download that app, but there were a number of questions submitted about how to see which sessions are going on, and I would recommend that the app is the best and most up-to-date way to do that. If sessions have to be canceled or moved for any reason, the app will be continuously updated, so I just wanted to make sure we address that as well. The next question, I'm interested in how I can connect with different advisors from various top-tier universities about my strong interest in applying for a PhD in their program. I was wondering if there is a best way to go about doing this, perhaps by reaching out to representatives before the conference. Dr. Gilbert, did you want to start off and try to take this one as well?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The conference is definitely a fantastic opportunity to query potential options in graduate laboratories. As was noted in the question, one potential approach that you could take would be to reach out to the advisor ahead of the conference, but I can tell you from personal experience, my inbox is an incredibly scary place to be, and chances are an email might get missed. So if you don't get a response using that approach, don't fret. You will almost certainly have a better opportunity bumping into that professor at the conference. So a couple of good ways to ensure that might happen is looking up in advance whether they themselves are giving a talk or whether one of their trainees from their lab is giving a talk, and attending that talk also to learn more about what the lab is doing really at this moment. But also to chat with the graduate students or the PI, depending upon who's available. For me, oftentimes talking to my undergraduate and graduate or postdoc trainees is a better conduit to me because they can give you a better sense of what my lab is like and what we're actually doing, and give a personal introduction to me if I happen not to be around right at that moment. So I think you have a lot of avenues to kind of get opportunities to speak with people associated with labs that you might be interested in, and you should use all of those opportunities.
Great, thanks. Dr. Morse-Klein, the next one's for you. What are some good sessions to attend for undergraduate presenters on Saturday?
So I think that the specific scientific sessions are up to you and what your interests are. I will say that on Saturday there is a session in the morning that is hosted and run by BMES, and it's on Graduate Research Fellowship Program. So that's at 8 a.m. on Saturday. I strongly recommend that anyone who's an undergraduate who's interested in going to graduate school, attend that session so that you can be prepared for applying for fellowships. I think that I would also suggest going to the undergraduate presentations. There's some at 8 and at 1:30 and at 3:15. And the other thing that I would really suggest, in addition to finding what interests you in the platform sessions as well as in the poster sessions, is to attend the award lectures, the plenary sessions on Saturday. These are relatively young investigators who are really doing phenomenal research, and I'm 100% sure that those talks will be inspiring to any undergraduates and give you some great information on potential research areas to pursue in your graduate work.
Great, thank you. The next two questions I'm going to take, they're more logistical questions. The first is anyone allowed to attend abstract presentation sessions such as those on Thursday the 17th in the morning? If you want to attend any of the scientific program, you have to be registered for the conference. The same is held true for if you want to just visit the exhibit hall. Let's say you're someone who's local and you figure you're just going to stop by. You need a name badge to do that, and you can do that at registration, which is in as you enter the exhibit hall. So just wanted to let you know, as long as you have a name badge, you are in. The next question is, does BMES have any rules about taking photos during talks and how to use social media around it? There are no rules around that. We hope you will use the hashtag, which is hashtag BMES 2019 for all of your social media posts. We'll use some of these and highlight our social media tweets and Facebook posts after the conference. So we encourage you to take photos, especially in the BMES booth. As Dr. Morris-Klein mentioned, we're going to have some puppies and kittens, and we're using the BMES booth this year. The majority of those who are registered, which is about 4,700 as of today, are all BMES members, and we want to take the opportunity to thank you. But if you're not a BMES member, you can stop by the booth as well and join the organization, because I know once you're on site, you're going to want to do that. Some of the live questions that we're getting as we've been talking. The first is, what is the dress code for social events, particularly the dessert bash on Friday night? Dr. Morris-Klein, do you want to take that? I know you mentioned it briefly.
Sure. I mean, I think the dress code is comfortable and I don't know, like neat. You don't want to be wearing really junky clothes because you might meet someone who you want to work for someday. At the same time, the Franklin Institute is a fun place to explore, and it's a casual event, so you do not need to dress up. But I would try, I don't want to say business casual because that's a little too dressy, but just try and wear something that's nice and somewhat professional looking, but like not a suit or dress or anything that formal.
Great, and you might want to have some comfortable, even if they're sneakers, walking shoes, because you'll get a lot of your steps in during the conference.
Yes, that is definitely true.
Dr. Morris-Klein, this one's directed for you. I would like to ask you to expand a little bit more on the Meet the Faculty Candidate Forum event that's going to be held on October 16th at 3:30. I'm an active candidate applying for academic positions. How can I best prepare for the event and make the most networking out of it?
So the Meet the Faculty Candidate event is like a large poster session where the faculty candidates stand near their posters in a room, and people who are looking for faculty for their universities come in and talk to you. So I would say that if you have a particular university or a job that you're interested in, it's worthwhile to contact the chair of the search committee and tell them that you're going to be at the BMES Meet the Faculty event, and to try to arrange to meet them or have them stop by your poster at the event to talk to you. Also, we talked about the university hosted reception. So basically, most of the universities who have a large presence at BMES have a reception on either Thursday evening or Friday evening. And at those receptions, you will see department chairs and faculty in a room at the hotel or at the convention center, and there will be food and beverages and the opportunity for you to talk and mingle with faculty and students from that particular university. So the second thing, and you obviously cannot hit all of them, but you could pick your top few and make sure that you follow up after the Meet the Faculty session by going to some of those hosted receptions by the universities. And finally, you can also send out information on when you're giving your talk at BMES to those faculty search committees, or try and find faculty from those universities who are giving talks and try to speak and network with them. So there's a lot of different ways. I wouldn't rely solely on that Meet the Faculty Candidate session because it is, from what I've heard, quite busy and quite crowded. There are a lot of opportunities at BMES to network.
Great, thanks. Dr. Gilbert, this one's for you. Thank you for talking about finding graduate programs at the conference. I had a specific question. Are there a list of schools that will be provided? Let's say I have a great conversation with a representative at a university. What would be the best way to do a follow-up, perhaps with that same person or maybe a new professor I'm interested in?
I will speak to the second half of this question. Oh, it has just disappeared. But the first half, I have to admit, I don't know if there's a list of schools that are represented at the meeting itself. But we can pass that back to Elisa in a moment. So there are several ways that you can intersect with graduate programs, and these have been raised a number of different times. One is at the graduate program booths that are in the center of the exhibit hall. And another place will be at the mingle events that are hosted by each of the universities. Now when you're at the booths, for the most part you're going to be interacting with students or administrators for the department. And if you are speaking with them, most of the time they will ask for your contact information and they will reach out to you proactively. But you can also ask them for their contact information, and most are always very, very happy to provide that. At the university-hosted social events, individuals that you saw at the graduate program booths will almost certainly also be there and available to ask general questions about the grad programs that are at their universities. But in addition, as Elisa mentioned, you'll also have a strong representation of faculty and students that are affiliated with those universities. Then you can have further conversations about their experiences in the graduate programs and the type of research, generally speaking, that's going on in the department.
Great. And as far as the first, the list of schools that are participating, there's a couple of different ways to go about this. First is you can use the app. It'll have a list of attendees as long as they make themselves viewable. So you'll have a list of all the attendees in the app, as well as who the exhibit booth spaces are, and a listing of those people, so you'll be able to tell from there. And I think if you meet somebody at the conference as well, if there's somebody who, take a picture of their name tag. It doesn't hurt to have that in your phone as a backup way to remember who you spoke with. Dr. Morse-Klein, did you have any other additions to answering that question, the first half of that question?
No, I was just going to say there's a list of exhibitors on the website as well if you don't have the app yet. So you can go through and see all the universities that are going to be there. And I was just going to check and see if there was contact information. Usually there's a representative there, but a lot of the universities will have faculty sitting at the booths as well as staff who can give you contact information.
Great. The next one I'm going to direct to you, Dr. Mansfield, and it's what is a good way to approach biotech companies for jobs?
So I think going back to what I mentioned about companies in general, I would, in terms of the companies that are going to be at the meeting, you can find those in the list of exhibitors, and you can find exactly where their booth is going to be. But I would definitely do some research ahead of time on the company website, find out what positions potentially they have available, so that you go in from an informed perspective. And then I would certainly connect with whatever representative is at the booth, and that, again, may not be the decision maker in this case, but you can certainly get some more information about who best to contact at the company, or some different avenues to try and further your job search with respect to that particular organization.
Thanks for answering that. And we got another question, where can we find a schedule for all the listed receptions? I would say the app is the best answer, and you can do that, download the app by going into your phone's app store and looking for BMES meetings and download it from there. There will also be a book that you get that isn't going to have the full listing of all the scientific sessions, but it will have some of the vendors listed as well as schedules at a glance. So that'll also be another way to find the listed receptions. Next question is the rapid resume review open to all students at the conference? Wanted to confirm what members only means. I can take this and say, if it's for members only, you have to be a BMES member to enter the room for that, for the rapid resume review. Next question, from your experience as faculty and people in industry, what do you think helps students you've met stand out? Stephanie, did you want to start that off?
Sure. I think that I'm going to go back again to kind of research and the intelligent questions. So I'll take this from the industry perspective. I think whenever I'm speaking with someone, or I know my industry colleagues are speaking with someone at a conference, the more that you can reference, for example, what was in their talk, or something you know about the particular company, and come in from a position of having done your homework, I think that is absolutely something that makes you stand out. Certainly all of the interpersonal skills that we've talked about before, in terms of being outgoing and having a good conversation, having a business card ready, and then the follow-up as well. I'm always happy to connect with people after the conference. Again, oftentimes there's going to be situations where there's not, for example, an immediate need perhaps in that company, but having the connection will always serve you well. And so I think that the students that have stood out the most to me, again, are the ones who clearly take the time to have done their research ahead of time, have a clear interest and an understanding about why they believe they would be a good fit for the organization, and then who take the time to follow up after.
Great, thank you. Did Dr. Morse-Klein or Dr. Gilbert want to add anything to that? Because I think that's going to be our last question, because we're just at time. If not, I'm going to leave this up on the screen. We've got some activities and events coming up, our annual meeting, obviously. You can sign up for a special interest group that Dr. Gilbert talked about by visiting our home webpage, which is bmes.org. As Dr. Mansfield had talked about, there will be an open call for committee volunteers on November 1st that will open up for you to do just that, volunteer for our committees. There's probably anywhere between 3 and 6 spots opening up on most of our committees, and that call will go out on November 1st. And then the CMBE conference is coming up. That's January 2nd through the 6th of next year. It'll be at the Wyndham Grand Rio Mar Puerto Rico Golf and Beach Resort. So that is coming up. And again, this concludes our webinar. We want to thank you for joining us. Please stay online. Take a few minutes to complete the brief webinar evaluation before you go. Your feedback is going to help us identify future programs for the webinar series. We'd also like to remind you that the webinar is being recorded for your convenience. The slides and the archived audio recording are going to be available on the BMES website, and you'll be notified by email when the archived materials have been posted. We hope you'll join us again for other BMES events like those listed on your screen now. To learn more about upcoming BMES activities and events, just go to our homepage. You can always reach out to me. Again, I'm Jen, Jenn, at bmes.org. Thank you so much, and thank you to our 3 presenters, and we'll see you on the ground in Philadelphia next month. Thank you, everyone.